This is Adam Gorney on the Rival Signing Day show here with former Colorado quarterback Kordell Stewart, former NFL quarterback. A whole lot of things here, and we want to talk about a lot because it's a busy time for Colorado. But first, we want to talk about the miracle at Michigan. That is what it's all about. And I watched it last night again just to refresh. And I know it's clear in your mind, but Keith Jackson was on the call. I think you threw it from the 26 and it got to the 1. Did you think you got it in the end zone? Just kind of remind us all about that throw.
Well, to follow up on what you're saying, the trajectory of the ball was actually going. It was actually going into the end zone if it continues to go right. So
Right.
it's one of those things where you practice it in practice. You talk about it with your coach. You want the perfect situation and scenario. And how we ran it in practice, it was kind of like a walkthrough. The guys would be at the the plus 20-yard line. I would be at maybe the 40. And the guys would walk. Rick Neuheisel would walk the guys to their positions, preferable positions. And it would be me just throwing it up in the air, literally trying it, throwing it up in the air, seeing how far I could throw it in the altitude in Colorado. And it'd be a discussion. Exactly, literally, the way you saw it. Now, the person that you probably would say would have a chance to get it through all the minutia that you have with the 3 receivers on one side and the one coming from afar is that one, the one coming from afar. It's the battle of these three, our 3 guys and their defensive backs to this one dude that no one really sees coming, right? End up being able to get tipped and go off, into the tunnel and act like we've done something real. Well, it actually happened that way, just flipped it over. Michael Westbrook being on the outside of the 3 receivers. Blake Anderson ended up tipping, be a part of the tip, being a distraction, so to speak, because that's his responsibility, the front man. And then Mike came around with the Hall of Famer, Ty Law, on his hip. And, Mike had a great game that day and ended up making arguably one of the greater catches in college football history, truthfully.
So that the intention was to tip it. It wasn't just kind of a scrum and then the ball kind of flew to Westbrook. The intention was to kind of tip it
No,
back.
no, it's a Hail Mary pass. So all Hail
Yeah.
Mary pass, just to let those who don't understand the Hail Mary pass, it's not always about just the person catching because there's so many hands that are
Right.
flying in the air to knock it down. So it ends up, that's why it's called the Hail Mary pass, because it's a prayer, right? It's a throw in a prayer. Not a wish in a prayer, but a throw in a prayer. And it ended up happening the way you talk about it. You tip it up. That's why it's guys swatting it down, right? Because they know
Yeah.
the other guy's trying to tip it up. They say, let me get my best jumper to go up and get it out of the air and pull it down. And that's what happened. So we call it tip left because the ball was on the right hash. We threw it to the left. If the ball was on the left hash, we would call it tip right. So all intended purposes, most catches may fall into the lap of a player. It's very seldom you actually see the tip.
Yeah.
And it actually happens perfectly. It literally happened exactly, I promise, to a science of how we want it and wish it could happen, not knowing who would tip it, not knowing who would catch it. But the content, the way content is on social media today, like, podcasts and all that good stuff, we make $100 billion off of that, man, because the content was perfect. It's what you draw up in the classroom, on the board. So it was perfect. It was perfect.
I know you're going to say yes, and throwing it in Boulder with that thin air, 76 yards, it could be done. Ann Arbor was a little different. Did you feel like you could get it there? Was there confidence that this could possibly happen?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Like seriously. Like I know many may say, "Oh, no way," or we don't see that happening often. Well, that's what we did. That's what I had. Was an arm that was strong and was capable of truly throwing the ball on any portion or part of the field. And literally after making that throw, not so much in practice or at home playing baseball and stuff like that when I was young, but to do it when it mattered brought so much more confidence in my arm strength because you did it in a moment in time where it ended up being the result of a win, right? And you're the first that actually calling out the number exactly where the number is supposed to. It was thrown from the ball was released from my hand from the minus 26.
Yeah.
You gave me 2 more yards, and I love you for it. It was from the minus 26 yard line. So that technically was a 74 yard pass. in the air. I don't want the official line of scrimmage conversation
Right.
because it took about an extra 10 more yards and a little bit more firepower or even nitro, to get that thing to jump the way it did. But they talk about the Doug Flutie pass, and okay, all right, that's Boston, that's ESPN.
Yeah.
They're gonna jump that thing really good, and a few others like the LSU to the Cal Stanford. But if you turn the volume down and you're speaking of a Hail Mary pass, and you see the clock and you watch the play, pandemonium.
Yeah.
It was crazy at its finest moments in a place where Bill McCartney coached, a place where Michael Westbrook was recruited because I think he was from Flint, Michigan, I want to say. And to then go into their house, Lynn Swann, the great Lynn Swann, Steelers Hall of Fame receiver, was actually covering the game with ABC on the sideline. So I'm like, this feels pretty darn good. And the stadium was so big compared to our stadium in Colorado. You're talking about it seating 100,000+ people. And to be in that sea of blue and gold, as they say, go blue, blue and gold. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But to have that happen in that moment and all the things that were transpiring, us with great numbers, but not being able to get it done earlier than that, to come to that play, it would be arguably with so many great moments in Colorado football history.
Yeah.
Whether it's the national championship teams and the things that they were able to accomplish from 89 to 90, going back to 88, a Liberty Bowl to even taking it over to the two Orange Bowls against Notre Dame. But you're talking about this one play consistently. That is remarkable within itself and humbling to know that we still are remembering that play, and what it does mean to my institution, let alone my teammates that was a part of that play.
Yeah, let's talk about that and where they are today. I mean, you never had a losing season there. Bill McCartney was, a Hall of Famer. What do you make of the Deion hire? How excited are you for you to see what he does there? And you know better than anybody, what does it take to be successful at Colorado?
Well, you have to get those. See, Colorado is a very special place, right? I don't know if you've ever been to Boulder or
Yeah, it's
to the state of
beautiful.
Colorado on vacation. It's second to none. And, it's considered one of for college students, the number one party city in the country, right? And for the right reasons, you can tell why when you took your visits and how much fun and how comfortable it felt to be in an environment that was so peaceful, if you will. I'm from New Orleans, and my city is peaceful as well, but it's different. All
Yeah.
right. You have creeks with water is about as clear as the water in water bottles that you buy from the store, to the mountains. They still are sitting in the same place that they were sitting when I went there back in 1991. The air is just as crisp as it gets. The lifestyle is a first class lifestyle, and to be able to be a part of that, it's unbelievable. Now you add Deion, and then Coach Mack being a godly man and promise keepers, and all the stuff that his life was surrounded around, kind of instilled in us and made us feel comfortable as young men being in a community such as that one, coming from New Orleans or coming from parts of Miami, parts of Texas, and Compton and Watts in California. You're asking these young men that come from different environments and backgrounds to adjust to this type of a community. So to have the Mad Dogs, Jeff Madden, who was our strength coach, to the Coach Lucases, to the Tim Lewises, all these different coaches that look like us, that allowed us to feel really, really comfortable in that community, which it wasn't about that, but it makes you feel comfortable knowing where you came from, and who could I talk to can relate. And they just won a national championship. You had Darren Higgin as the starting quarterback, with Charles Johnson backing him up. You had Mike Pritchard and, all these different, O.C. Oliver that was a part of that run. You had all these players, George Hemingway, fullback, 6'3", 200 and every bit of 45, 50 pounds in college, to be able to be a part of that and know the success that we've had then, to know Deion and the success that he's had, whether it's with the youth, whether it's with the high school, the school that he had, to Trinity High, where they've gone to state championships pretty much every year, and I think maybe won 3 out of 4. to then taking that success over to Jackson State and see a community that was struggling when it came down to wins and success. And the only success that you can think of, truthfully, if you're thinking about Jackson State, is dealing with someone like a Walter Payton, right? And so when you have all these different, angles of what you're having a chance to be a part of there in Jackson State, now you take that energy and now you put it into a place like Colorado. Come on, dude. I just gave you a full story to let you feel it. I could just answer it and get straight to the point, but I wanted you to feel it because that's what Deion is experiencing with himself. You saw how elated he was when at his presser and talking. I know him personally. We spent a lot of time together. We traveled together, vacationed together in Puerto Rico, to Florida at boat shows, to spending time with Shiloh and Shador when they were little toddlers, when they were when we were at Baltimore together, and a lot of calls and cracking jokes and having fun, and to see a man of his liking in the sense of what he believes in and what he's about and raising these young men. The stories I gave you about where we came from and how things were adjusted for the portal and regents, and not just for the student athletes, but the students as well, it's going to bring revenue in. It's going to bring in that type of athlete that based on the criterias, if you will, to get in has been kind of softened a little bit, if you will, so that the relevance of football can be as profound as it used to be. And the excitement that we have now is similar to what we had back then, but social media, and podcasts and being able to talk about it all day, every day, as I'm sure you've seen Deion and I, we did a podcast together. We did Instagram live together, and, talking about he asking me to come back to work with Shador and be a part of the program in some capacity. I'll let him tell that story, but I don't know yet. But just to be a part of it and get that phone call and him giving me my flowers now, it's different, man. It's different, bro. And I can't put it in words any better because it's a surreal moment for me as a Buff, but most importantly, my friend being able to have that job and bring relevance back to my institution.
Kordell, real quick on the podcast, talk about On the Edge with Slash and the Believe Me podcast, what you talk about and where it's going.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. I have a platform to be able to talk about sports. It's on the Believe Network. It's BLEAV, as you see on the screen here. The On the Edge with Slash is my own podcast where we talk about everything sports. Whether it's college, whether it's the NFL, and even talking LPGA and PGA golf and basketball, whatever we choose to go with. And the Believe Me Network, as you can see on the screen, is one that's about betting, right? So you have the professional gambler, you have the host of the show, and you have myself, the former player, that talks to the host of the show and say, believe me, and why I'm right. So like the Jacksonville game against the Dallas Cowboys, I said, believe me, that Doug Peterson has ignited some energy into this team with being able to get 2-point conversion in closing moments, a game that creates confidence. To then all of a sudden, I said they were going to beat the Dallas Cowboys. And everybody's like, well, I'm going to let you have that one. And I'm like, believe me, it's going to happen. And lo and behold, what happened this past weekend? Jacksonville ended up beating the Dallas Cowboys. And so now they play the Jets, and I said they're going to win this one too. And believe me, they're going to win that one too. So you can come on in and listen to us, listen to me, and get some real good insight on what we think about the game, most importantly, but yet having a chance to talk about the betting side of it and how you can have a chance to win some big bucks. Don't blame us for your decision, but we can at least steer you in the right direction, and that's what we do.
Hey, if you predicted that pick six, then you got all my money, and I don't have any. So
you don't need that one. I'm not that good, but I'm good enough to say they were going to win. I'll take that part, but I'm not that good.
Awesome. Kordell Stewart here with Adam Gorney on the Rival Signing Day Show.